We're going to get deep this week. We're going to look at something that's sort of different than most gong and singing bowl discussions go to. We're going to look at the argument against a fixed reality right here on Cuppa Time. The argument against a fixed reality. This is something I thought about for quite a while. It's something I've written about, and I'd like to speak from my own experience. I see a lot of people now discussing various aspects with gongs and singing bowls and sound healing, sound therapy, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the things that they talk about and work with are fixed values. A good example would be singing bowls and the chakras, and how each chakra has a specific note, frequency, tuning, however you want to describe it. Color, different things like that. And that is fixed. That this note goes to this chakra, and that is it. Never changes. That is fixed. So that's what I mean about a fixed reality or a fixed value. That's probably the best example of that. And then we have a lot of this other stuff about different frequencies, 432 hertz, 528 hertz, etc., and how these fixed frequencies work magic for a wide variety of things that people will claim. Then we have the planet tunings, which were devised by Swiss mathematician Hans Cousteau. And people will affix a lot of non-changeable ideas to these tunings. So first, that's how I want to define a fixed reality in what we do, gongs, singing bowls, and that. So a lot of people put these sort of conditions on various tunings, various frequencies. Now, on my work over the years, I have really found that everything is fluid, at least to me. So, for what I am talking about today, this is what works for me. This is my personal experience. Your experience may differ greatly. And that is part of what I'm talking about. Because what works for me is not fixed for everyone, for all of you out there. So that's very important to understand. And that really defines what I'm talking about. So this is what works for me. This is my own experience, my own story of working with the gongs, especially in these past 20 years. Now, after a session, I like to talk to people. I like to find out what they experienced, their thoughts, how they feel, whatever sort of thing they want to share. I like that because I like to know what's going on. Because what's going on with me is certainly different than what's going on with them. And one thing I have found is that you get a group of people together. Let's say we have 10 people at a session. We're all in the same room at the same session, listening to me create the same sounds. Each of the 10 people will have their own experience. There might be a couple that, okay, this is similar, we're having the same thing here, but a couple of the other people, yeah, we're having the same thing. But you're going to find that the experiences vary. For example, one person laying there might say, I felt cold. I experienced cold running through my body. Whereas another person might say, well, I felt hot. I could feel this heat radiating through my body. What's that all about? We were in the same room, listening to the same sounds and vibrations, two different experiences. That's what I'm talking about. This idea of a fixed reality. I don't see it work. If I was to say, I'm going to play this gong right here, this gong or this singing bowl, and for everyone in this room, it will specifically affect something. Let's say your heart chakra. Everybody's going to feel it in their heart. That's not going to happen. Unless by the power of my suggestion, everybody goes, oh, I feel it there. I feel it in my heart. But no, that's not going to happen. Some people will feel it, okay, maybe in their heart. Others maybe in their abdomen. Someone else might say, I feel it more in my head. So all of this is fluid. And I think this is a very important thing to understand. The universe is fluid. And as we discover more and more about the universe and its workings, we discover more and more that things can be fluid, that things can change. And especially there are these notions today of how we actually can create our own reality, how we can affect our own reality. So if that is true, then how I affect this reality in front of me is different than how you affect the reality in front of you. Even if we are in the same place, experiencing the same thing, whether it be music, a film, a sporting event, whatever. We are perceiving it from our own perspective. And I think that's really important to realize. Everyone has their own perspective. And perspective is generally based on memory. What has happened before? What is in our past? We associate things with things we already know, we've already experienced. If we hear a sound, we might go, oh, that sound is like something I used to hear when I was a child, or something that my grandmother had at her house. That's your experience. Somebody else might not think anything about that sound, or they might go, oh, I remember that sound when I grew up on a farm. It sounds sort of like farm machinery or something. So everybody perceives the reality based on the experiences they've had in their life. And everybody's life experiences are completely different. Even the siblings who've grown up in the same house will have different ideas about what they've experienced. Here's a really great example of that. Police reports. 5 people witnessing a crime or an accident. Police will get all their statements, and there can be a general consensus of things, but the details might be different. And why is that? Because, again, our memory, we relate what we saw, what we experienced to something we've already experienced in order to make sense of it. So the police will take the reports, and there will be variations on it. Maybe just as simple as the description of the perpetrator. Some people will describe them one way, some will describe them a different way. So it's always the details are different because of how we perceive things. So here too, someone is at your session, laying there on a yoga mat covered with a blanket, listening to the sound. And someone is next to them, listening to the sound. But they're processing everything through their own mind, their own consciousness, their own previous experiences. So for me, and this could be different for you, but for me, I don't hold to or assign anything to a fixed reality. Because from my experience, I found that things change all the time, from day to day, from session to session. While I've done hundreds or thousands of sessions and concerts and that, and there are similarities in all of them, sort of a common thread maybe. It's the details that change every time. And if you try to recreate something, you cannot recreate it. Let's say you played a session and there was just this incredibly intense feeling, this energy from one of the gongs, and it filled the room, and it was just amazing how it happened. And the next session you try to do that again, the chances are it won't happen. Because everything has changed since then. You were in a different space, a different vibration, even a different reality, if you want to think of it that way. So we can't recreate things. Think about things in your life. Going to concerts, multiple concerts of the same band that you like. Each concert is different. Multiple sporting events of the same team you like. Each game is different. Things like that. So everything is fluid. Reality just keeps moving on and changing, evolving, and it doesn't go back. You can get close maybe, but you can never recreate something. So I don't try to do that. I let each session, each moment be its own. And I think that's important. And I don't try to impose anything on the people that I'm playing for. I don't tell them what to expect. I don't tell them what to experience. I let them tell me afterwards, if they want to, what they experienced. But I never tell them because I don't know what's going to happen. It's an unknown. And even working with the same instruments, the same main gongs for 20 years, the same bowls for 15 years, things like that, it's different every time. At least for me. Maybe for you and your method, you can recreate the same thing over and over. I can't, and I don't try to, and I don't want to. But if doing that works for you, if working with the chakras, working with the planets, working with any sort of methodology works for you and your people who come to see and listen to you, if it works, that is fine. Keep doing it, love it, enjoy it. Doesn't work for me, and we're all different. Isn't that amazing? You know, we're all very different. So find what works for you. I know I have friends who work with all kinds of different methods that I don't work with, and it works for them, and that's fine. So find what works for you, whether it's a consistent method, consistent ideas and effects, or it's leaving it all up in the air, improvising, letting it happen, being with the moment. Find what works for you. All right. So, again, if you have any questions, any comments, put them down below. I always like to read through and I'll answer everyone. And hit subscribe if you're enjoying this series. And we will see you in the next Cuppa time.